What's going on, Rays fans? Rachel West here, along with Mark Topkin, joining us from Cleveland as the game's getting ready to get underway in a few hours here, Mark. And of course, as I mentioned, you're in Cleveland. They're playing the Guardians, game one of the wild card series this year. Now, there was a lot of talk. Maybe the Rays should tank, not win as many games, get that 6th seed to play in Cleveland. How do they stack up against them? Is that really the method that they should have taken?
I guess we'll know in a day or two, right, Rachel? We'll see how it works out for them. But I don't know that they obviously they couldn't come out and say. I don't know if they really were trying to. I think I called it tanking for Tito in the paper a couple weeks ago in the Tampa Bay Times. But it did seem like how they were resting so many players that they were okay with finishing 6th. Let's put it that way, getting the 6th seed, the 3rd wild card spot. It does seem to be a little better route for them in that they're a very similar matchup to the Cleveland team. They're a pitching-oriented, defense-oriented, speed-based. Neither team hits for a lot of power. Both teams try to win the game by out-hustling you. So there's a very similar matchup there. I think that seems more appealing to the Rays than Toronto, who is going to outslug you, and the Rays can't match up with them. But on the other hand, the Rays won the season series against Toronto 10-9. They were about same record home and road, so they can win in Toronto. That wasn't a problem. The Rays were 2-4 against Cleveland. They just saw them and looked really bad. Cleveland made them look really bad. So, I don't know if it was as obvious as it seemed. I do think there's a kind of a second level benefit here in that it's already predetermined. The winner of this series plays the Yankees, who were the second best division winner. And the winner of the other series plays the Astros, who were the top seed. So it does seem a little better path.
Now, with all of that being said, entering the playoffs right now, the Rays are on a 5-game losing streak, season high. They don't have momentum on their side. How important is momentum right now, or I guess a lack thereof?
Yeah, I guess, kind of the same answer in a way of we'll find out. But sometimes it's rest versus rust. When a team wins its playoff series, it has to wait 4 or 5 days to play the next team. It's rare to have a team go into, certainly you wouldn't go into the next round of a playoff series on a losing streak, and much less to go into the first round of a playoff series on a losing streak. They lost 5 in a row, some of those because they were not playing their full lineup. The Rays made the decision, the way I understand it, was once they knew, and this was 4 or 5 days ago, that they couldn't get home field advantage, that they were not going to be the top wild card, that almost like it didn't matter whether they went to Cleveland or Toronto, that they prioritized rest. I mean, Pete Fairbanks and Jason Adam, their 2 most important right-handed relievers, haven't pitched in a week. So they did a practice session. They did like a simulated game type thing a couple days ago in Boston, but they'll have had a week's worth of rest. Now, does that help, or does that make those guys not as sharp? I won't find that out. Yandy Diaz has had the sore shoulder. He got a lot of rest. He's only started 1 game at third base since September 19th. He also had a DH game and a pinch hit appearance, so they gave him a lot of rest. Wander Franco's gotten 2 of the last 4 days off. So they rested these guys for reasons. We'll see. Now, like I said, they might come out and look like they've been off too much, or they might come out and really benefit from the rest. The Rays are gambling that they thought this through properly.
And despite the lack of momentum, they've got Shane McClanahan that they're throwing out on the mound game 1. They've got Tyler Glasnow going out there game 2. So even though they have been struggling a little bit as of late, you got to feel good about your chances when you got those guys out there for you.
Right. There's a saying in baseball, much older than you, that's momentum is the next day's starting pitcher. And certainly that can be the case for the Rays. That 5-game losing streak won't mean anything if Shane McClanahan takes the mound this afternoon and dominates and looks like Shane McClanahan from the first half. He didn't pitch well against the Guardians earlier this year. That was in July. It was after the All-Star break. It was kind of the beginning of that stretch where he didn't look real good and leading to the injury eventually in Miami, where he missed a little bit of time. But I think he's pretty motivated. His postseason last year, he had a really good start and then a really bad relief appearance in the last game where they lost at Boston, and he wasn't happy about it. He talked a little bit today and said he learned a lot about himself, both from that game last year and from his struggles this year. So he's talking a good game. We'll see this afternoon. And then Tyler Glasnow, probably the big unknown, the big X factor, literally and figuratively, in this playoff series, because he's only had 2 starts since he came back from Tommy John surgery. He went 3 innings and essentially 4 innings. He was out short because of a wild pitch third strike, but probably be about 5 innings and 75 pitch limit on game 2 on Saturday. And, will that get him deep enough? Will he get 5 innings? Will he get deep enough in the game? If he goes short, the Rays will have to tax their bullpen, which, if they've won the first game, isn't as bad as if they lost the first game. They're trying to battle their way back here. So he's a little bit of an unknown, but certainly has looked good in the 2 starts he's made. And then if they get that point, they'll have their choice, we would think, between Jeffrey Springs or Drew Rasmussen for game 3.
Let's cross that bridge when we get there. Maybe they won't even have to do that. Lastly, as we've talked a lot about, the Rays have been on an insanely long road trip that's only turned longer now with these 2, maybe 3 games coming up here. Does that have any kind of impact on anything, you think?
I think it's probably in a weird way, like a positive, like it'll become a rallying force for them. I know talking to a couple of guys, they said the plane flight on Wednesday night from Boston to Cleveland, you think it might be, they would have been down because they lost 5 in a row. He said there was a lot of excitement about, hey, it's finally time for the playoffs. Kevin Cash's comment after the Wednesday game in Boston that he said, essentially, I told the players it's time to stop. It's time to stop sucking and figure out ways to win games again. So I think there was a lot of excitement. They had a workout in Cleveland on Thursday. I was at that. There was a lot of upbeat guys, a lot of happy faces. They get new sweatshirts and new caps, and there's equipment guys all send them new stuff. So everybody was pretty excited on Thursday, and I think they'll be pretty fresh in that mood. So in a way, it's kind of like, we're in this together. We bounced around. The road trip started here. Then they went to Houston. Then they went to Boston. Now they're back here. If they win, they go on to New York. And they would love it to become an 18-day trip. But I think you can turn to the sage words of Terry Francona, the Cleveland manager, and Kevin Cash's good friend, who was asked if it was an advantage over the Rays, because they've been on such a long trip. And let me look down and quote you directly here, because we certainly want to get Terry's words right. Absolutely. Would it be an advantage if the Rays have been on such a long road trip? If they're out of underwear, yeah. Nobody wants to be out of underwear. So let that be our lesson for life here on this podcast.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say to that. I don't think there's any response that fits that appropriately enough. So I'm just going to let it sit there. Thank you for that, for the wise words from not only Terry Francona, but yourself, Mark. We'll see just how the Rays do in Cleveland over the next couple of days. And if we've got an ALDS coming our way shortly as well. Make sure you guys are keeping up with all of our Rays coverage that we've got for you over on social media at Sports by Tampa Bay Times, as well as over at tampabay.com.